Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Saturday class with prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurбhavасва Tatsavitravare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto Ma Sadgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityorma Amritam Gamya Om Sahna Bhavatu Sahna Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So chapter 1, Samadhi Pad, we are towards the end of it in this class. So verse number 48, Ritambraha Tatra Pragya. That's what we learn, that our intuitive wisdom dawns with the help of the Samadhi. Okay? So as we practice, keep on practicing, so the veil of ignorance gets lifted. So that's what this really means. Ritambraha Pragya. Okay? So on our part, we got to just practice, keep on purifying our mind and keep on doing the sadhana. Detach from the world and attach it to God. Okay? Sure, some of us will say that it's easy said than done. But unless we practice, it's not going to happen. We got to start wherever we are. Wherever in the worldly realm we think we are stuck, try to detach from it and attach to God. Okay. So let's start with verse number 49. Rut Anuman Pragyaha Anyavishayaa vishesharthatvat. So Shrut means, see, just like a Shruti. Shrut, that which has been heard, or that which has been passed on by the oral tradition, that you heard it. Because that's how the ancient scriptures, the texts known as Vedas, they were passed on. Shrut. Anuman, inference. So inference is as opposed to the perception or even the knowledge documented in the texts. Inference. Pragya, that's the intuitive knowledge or revelation. Anyavishayaa, anya means different from, vishya means object. So which is totally different from both scriptural knowledge and inference. Vishesharthatvat. Vishesh means special, unique. Arthatvat, due to having meaning, like a knowledge whose content and source is unique. Arthatvat, Vishesh Arthatvat. So the knowledge whose content and source are unique. So the content of intuitive wisdom, the pragya, is totally different from that which can be derived from scriptural sources, even the Shrutis, and inference. For both its sources and its intent are unique and extraordinary. So the knowledge which is flowing from the realm of intuition is unique, in the sense that it's not dependent on scriptures or inference or any other evidence for its validity. So this intuitive knowledge is crystal clear. It's almost like a light passing through. And that light retains its original clarity and brilliance. And this light reveals its source. That's why it's called revelation. If there is even the slightest urge to consult the scriptures to verify whether or not what you experienced is valid, it means either the revelation did not descend from the field of pure intuition, or before it landed, that mind was not pure. So that's why Patanjali is emphasizing the importance of purifying the mind. Because an impure mind can undermine the force of revelation. Doubt comes. And what is the most powerful impurity? Because we got to know that too. Because the impurity that contaminates the force of revelation is asmita. Asmita, I amness, a very strong identification. Because we hold our self-image so dear that it overshadows the existence of our core being, the soul. Even though we are only the soul, nothing else. But we identify with so many different things. Not just the body alone, but our ideas, our belief systems, our achievements. So function of asmita is subtle, but it's extremely potent. So that's why a seeker needs to be armed with the highest level of vigilance. Asmita is like a black hole. Black hole that can devour the brilliance of thousands of suns. That's asmita. Our self-image is driven by the powerful desire to hold on to those attributes that gives its existence. The process of self-identification gives us a self-image. And that is so meaningful to us. And our self-image places itself at the center of the universe and demands that the world around it conform to its wishes. That is the struggle between two family members or two leaders or two nations. It cannot tolerate the existence of anything or anyone else. That's how strong this asmita is. So in this way, asmita creates its own world and lives in it. And that's why from the asmita, the scriptures say, arises the abhinivesh also, fear of death. Whatever we are firmly established in, we don't want to let it go. We resist, we fight. Abhinivesh. So this world is an amazing tangle of asmita. It is enveloped in darkness, and it's hard to detect where the darkness begins and where it ends. Attachment to this world forces us to live in the safety of this darkness. It's like a familiar known. We get so attached. And we keep ourselves shut within the confines of the world created by our asmita. Because opening ourselves to any other possibility is very frightening for us. absolute truth, the source of pure knowledge, lies beyond the world of asmita. Remember that. We got to cross this. The light of revelation, laden with pure knowledge, passes through the realm of asmita. And picks up the subtle properties of the contents that make up this world. This asmita, even at the higher stages, we got to be very careful about it. For example, often we start our spiritual quest while holding on to a strong identification of being a Christian or Hindu, Buddhist or Jew. We commit ourselves to different kinds of purification practices, prayers, scriptures reading, recitation, meditation, ritual worship, even selfless service, pilgrimage. One of these practices or a combination definitely helps us purify our heart. It will turn our mind inward and it will help us to take or receive the light of revelation. But before we reach our conscious mind, this light passes through this world of asmita. Remember that. It's very strong. My tradition, my mantra, my guru, even though it helps in the beginning, but in order to reach that ultimate revelation, we got to be very careful. There are not two gods up there. There are not two kinds of lights. It's only one. Only one. So this is what confines the range of our enlightenment. If we are not careful, we'll take this tainted knowledge as pure and perfect. We start fighting. And it will bear limited fruit. And how do we know if the light of revelation has picked up impurities from the realm of asmita? How do we really know? Patanjali gives us the answer in the next verse. Tajjah sanskar anyavishayaa Tajjah means evolving from that or born of that. Sanskar, the subtle impressions or the impressions of the past, sanskar. Anyavisayaa Anya means other, different. And again, sanskar, the subtle impression, pratibandhi, that which blocks, conceals. So that which conceals or neutralizes the karmic impressions of the past or nullifies. So the subtle impressions born of that intuitive wisdom, the pragya, cancel all other sanskars. So that is the effect of that knowledge, that pure knowledge. So in other words, freedom from the bondage of all the karmas. That's how we know that. So we keep on refining our meditation. The more refined the meditation, the greater the purity it grants the mind. Purer the mind, greater the chance it will be illumined by the inner light. And mental purification and a meaningful meditation, they go hand in hand. You cannot have a dirty mind and a meaningful meditation. For an impure mind, enlightenment is merely an empty word. Remember that. So mental purity is that much necessary. So it's only in a purified mind that the light of the Atma, the light of the soul, shines in its full brilliance. Nothing blocks it. And the aspirant will experience the inner reality the way it is. And this experience is so clear, so crisp, so unalloyed that it does not require any validation. It is self-evident. That's what he's telling us. And the scriptures call it intuitive wisdom. So there's no impurity whatsoever. There is room neither for distortion nor for the slightest trace of doubt. It's right in front of you. And most significantly, as this sutra proclaims, the subtle impressions born of this intuitive wisdom cancels all other sanskars. The old tendencies, they all get burnt out. So upon reaching this level of samadhi, a yogi is no longer affected by his previous deeds or by the fruits of those deeds. And this is what is meant by the freedom from the bondage of karma. The past becomes a history. The yogi becomes master of himself, no longer subject to anyone's opinions. The voice of the soul becomes the guiding force in all of life's endeavors. And in this state of practice, revelation is so clear, so well received, that the revealer, the revealed, and the recipient of the revelation have merged into one. And this state of realization wipes away all personal preferences, tastes, interests. So this sutra also clarifies that regardless of how profound and bright the revelation, if it does not cancel our preoccupations and prejudices, then this is a clear indication that that mind was not purified. So the flow of revelation gushing forth from the realm beyond picked up impurities from the mind field. Because the contaminations undermine the efficacy of revelation. It's just like a sun is shining, but clouds are there. Or we are sitting in a room and curtains are drawn. So your spiritual revelation instills your mind and heart with the feeling that you had an experience of a certain kind of a God, like a Hindu God. That means there was some impressions from the past are still there. Rather than the experience of God. So the flow of revelation passed through a mind that was still filled with some Hindu elements. God is neither a Hindu nor a Muslim nor a Christian. God is God. We should not put labels on God. So this is what he's telling us. Clarity is there. If we see that this clarity is coming more and more while we are practicing, that means we are moving towards the goal. And from there, what happens? Tasyapi nirodhe sarvanirodhannirbijah samadhih. Tasyapi. Tasya means of that, related to that. Api means also. Nirodhe, upon restraining, controlling. So that means going beyond even that state of meditation. Sarvanirodhat, sarv means all, nirodhat from the cancellation of. So due to the cancellation of everything. Nirbij, without seed. So technically this nirbij word is for the highest state of samadhi. Nirbij. No seeds of sanskars. Samadhi. We know this term now, the spiritual absorption. So upon cancellation of even that, everything else is cancelled. This is called a nirbij samadhi. Perfect freedom. So receiving revelation is a great spiritual achievement, because revelation grants us a clear understanding of ourselves, our relationships with the creation, creator. What is our place in this world? So this clear, crisp self-understanding takes away most of our fears and doubts, definitely. But we cannot just stop it here. We got to keep on practicing. Because we got to see the reality of ourselves and the world without any distortion. This sansar, like a cycle of birth and death, should not remain a mystery for us. Our past deeds, including even the most sublime spiritual endeavors and their subtle impressions, they should lose their grip on our mind. The charms and temptations of the world should no longer have an impact on our mind and senses. Then it's called moksha, freedom. We can live in this world while remaining above it. Desirelessness becomes part of our nature. Even the highly sought spiritual powers, to be able to see far away, to be able to hear far away, to be able to read somebody's mind, to be able to fly, go to another place without any instrument. Know how many galaxies are there. All those powers, they become very insignificant at this level. The powers which seem so profound to us, for a yogi, they are extremely insignificant. Neither the joyful spiritual experiences nor the calamity in this world will make any difference to a yogi. Mind stays peaceful constantly. This is the culmination of a meditative state that is filled with the light of revelation. Yogi doesn't have to bring the mind to this level. This yogi has cleaned the mind and revealed the truth. And this state has been described in these verses. Subtle impressions born of that intuitive wisdom cancel all other sanskars. That's what Rishi Patanjali is telling us. So in the previous verse, that's what he said. And this particular verse, he is taking us a step forward, actually. Amazing level of freedom. Freedom where the comprehension of everyone or to even know anything. It just loses. You don't have any desire. This is a transcendental divine being. Such a yogi sees both birth and death as a shadow of his soul. This realization grants freedom from the greatest fear, the fear of death. Because otherwise we know that fear of death haunts the mind of even the wisest among us. Death normally means the disintegration of the body. And yogi knows, I am not the body, and this body will disintegrate. So in the final analysis, the fear of death refers to the fear of losing that which we hold most dear. It could be the body. To somebody, it could be the money. Because money is very dear to most of us. Or to some people, it could be the long cherished self-image. And for others, it could be family and children, relatives. Attachment to what we have been considering me and mine is so strong that we feel terrified at the prospect of losing it. Losing is death for us. But Rishi Patanjali says, a yogi with the help of the abhyas and vairagya has the revelation, which brings the clearest understanding of who we are. So in other words, revelation brings us the gift of immortality. But the idea of our familiar self dying churns our mind at its very core. That's why we need to practice. Because unless we cross over this threshold, we will not attain perfection in yoga. Okay, so in this chapter, we talked about samadhi so much. And for some of us, or I would say most of us, this is only a word. So that's why next chapter, the very first verse is for students like us. What do we need to do? We haven't reached there, not even the first step of samadhi. Can't even meditate properly. What should we do? For a common person like us, we want to do it. It sounds good. We want to be free. We don't want to live a life of sorrow. What do we need to do? So second chapter is called a Sadhana Pad. Let's start with the very first verse. Tapahsvadhyayeshvarapranidhanani kriyayogah. Tap means to shine, to heat, to transform. So tap refers to the practices and disciplines which leading to acquiring radiance of the body, clarity of the mind. And generally we translate tap as austerity, penance. And a lot of scriptures, they say that you got to go through the hardship, expand your endurance. That's all tap. Swadhyay, swa means self. That means pertaining to your own inner reality. Adhyay means study. So swadhyay means a study of the self. Adhyay also means a chapter. We got to understand each and every chapter of our life separately. The chapter of life I'm on, am I going through it the way I should? So a thorough study of ourselves. But we can study ourselves only if we have studied the scriptures. So that's why Svadhyaya also means study of the scriptures. Otherwise, we don't know. What do we need to study about ourselves? Yshvarapranidhan. Ishwar means guiding and protecting force. Pranidhan means complete surrender. So having complete faith in the guiding and protecting power of the absolute reality. Yshvarapranidhan. Kriyayoga. Kriya means action or effort. So to move with purpose and goal. Yoga is the absolutely still state of mind. So Kriya Yoga means an action plan for acquiring a calm and tranquil mind. Or you can say that Kriya Yoga means to put the theory of yoga into practice. As I said earlier, the first chapter was basically a theory for us. Now time has come to put it into practice. So the schematic practice of yoga consists of three components: Tap, Swadhyaya, and Yshvarapranidhan. Another way you can understand Yshvarapranidhan, unshakable faith in the guiding and protection or protecting power of God. So these are the three steps to self-transformation. So action plan. So again, this is the very first sutra of chapter 2. And it's not there shouldn't be a discontinuation from the first chapter actually. Even though it has been divided into 4 chapters, but continuation is there. You say one beautiful garland. So whatever we learned before, we should remember that also. Samadhi, which we've been talking about so much, is the foundation of lasting joy. And we learned that when no fear, no doubt, in Samadhi, the mind stands still and regains its ability to see reality as it is. That's what Samadhi is. And we learned earlier that there are 2 prerequisites for that: Vairagya and Abhyas. Don't forget those while you are learning these also. So those are prerequisites actually: virtue of dispassion, and keep on practicing. Daily practice, long-term practice, without any interruption practice. Because charms and temptations of the world agitate our minds. And agitated mind is bound to be disturbed and distracted. Because living with a disturbed, distracted, and stupefied mind has become the norm for most of us. That's why reaching a state of Samadhi, as described in first chapter, is beyond the scope of most people. Should we just simply forget about practicing yoga? Because it seems so difficult for us? Because we cannot discipline our mind, we cannot purify it, we cannot focus it? The answer is no. So that's why this chapter starts out the practice which is doable for most of us. So Rishi Patanjali has put a plan together for us so that we can discover our core strength and we can execute our plan systematically. And he called it a kriyayogah, this plan. With this kind of a yoga, you can start practicing from wherever you are. So 3 components, remember, memorize it. Tapahsvadhyayeshvarapranidhanani. Tap helps us assess our physical capacity. Swadhyay, our mental ability and intellectual grasp, predominantly. And Ishwar Pranidhan allows us to see the depth of our emotional maturity. So all 3 of them together, they help us to see our strengths and also our weaknesses. And if we have a proper guidance, if we have a course or we have a guru who can design this practice for us, we can see the growth and development in us. We will examine these 3 components very closely in our next class. But let me talk a little bit about tap for a couple of minutes. Tap, loosely, we can translate as austerity. And austerity is normally associated with the strict self-denial. It could be fasting. It could be owning no material objects. It could be living in a cave or a hut with the bare necessities in extreme cases. For some people, it could be standing on one leg for years at a time, or even lying on a bed of nails. Celibacy, non-possessiveness. So there are so many different ways people go through this tapa. But this notion of austerity runs counter to the fundamental goal and objective of tapa in yoga. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita explained that very clear to us. He said those kind of a tapasya is a tamsik. With a tamsik tapasya, you cannot achieve the samadhi. So radiance and clarity are the core of tapa. A practice or discipline is tapa only when it can help us cultivate a radiant body. If we torture our body, that's not tapa. And if our mind gets confused, and if our mind becomes arrogant, that's not tapa. We want a radiant body and a clear mind. So remember, tap is not a torture or a hardship, but rather the ability to awaken the dormant energy within us. A person who undertakes such a practice is called tapasvi. At a practical level, tap gathers the fire within, overcoming the laziness, the sloth and inertia, becoming active, not being dependent on others for your salvation, taking charge of your own destiny, putting your intellectual knowledge into practice. That is tapa. Just like when we need to put the wheel into motion, you have to face the resistance caused by inertia in the beginning stages of your practice. Enduring this discomfort is tapa. When you commit yourself to this discomfort, without a true understanding of the higher goal and purpose of practice, your mind will perceive it as a torture. Torture is if somebody else is pushing it on you. It's a tapa because you have decided to walk on this path. If you know why you are undertaking a practice, what the goal is, what the objective is, how will it help you to remove the inertia of the body and the confusion of your mind, or how it can infuse your heart with the light of higher reality, why endure through the hardship, then it becomes a great opportunity. That tapa. But how do you practice this tapa, which will give us all that? The first level of practice involves restoring your body to health. If this physical body becomes weak and sick and lazy, you cannot do the tapa. Wholesome lifestyle, healthy diet, yoga exercises, regularity in sleeping pattern, those are all big tapa. And we'll talk about it next time, starting from here. How we do tapa. What does it take for us to do Swadhyay and Ishwarapranidhanani? So let's stop it here. It's a very important for us students who have started to walk on this path to understand Tapahsvadhyaya Ishwarapranidhanani. Remember, the kriyayogah has 3 parts. So these all 3. Okay? So let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.